We've got an exceptional program today. This is probably the first time, maybe in a long time, maybe ever, that we've had the two highest ranking party officials sharing a friendly podium. And we want to make sure that they have all the time that they can have. Well, I've known Billy Lovett since 1975 when I spoke at a meeting in Dublin for him. I was about the 9th speaker. I just happened to be working for the governor, and they had tried to get everybody in Georgia to come speak, and there was something happening in Washington, and they couldn't even get aides to elected officials to come speak. Lovett called me and told me, he said, look, we tried everybody and his brother to come speak to this event. Would you just come speak to this event? And so that's how I got to meet Billy Lovett and go speak, knowing full well they had tried to get everybody else to come speak. And Billy gave me a green coat that day and a shillelagh. I've long since grown out of the green coat, but my children actually still play with that shillelagh that you gave me in 1975. Billy's a veteran of government, state and local government, and he was elected earlier this year as chairman of the Georgia Republican Party. He was elected by a unanimous vote of the convention. And those of you who call yourself Republicans know what a feat that is, to be elected by a unanimous vote of the Georgia Republican Party at state convention. He's president of Lovett Associates, which is a business development and marketing company which he founded in 1991. Billy Lovett served for 12 years as a member of the Georgia Public Service Commission. He was first elected in 1978. You mean we've got to redo the whole last 15 minutes of this? He was first elected in 1978, and then he was re-elected in 1984. He served as vice chairman of the Public Service Commission until 1987, and he also served as chairman of the Public Service Commission's Policy Development and Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. From 1976 to 1978, just prior to the Public Service Commission election, Billy served as chairman of the Lawrence County Commission, which is the governing authority for Lawrence County. Like I said, I've known Billy for a long time. He's been involved in state and local politics for a long time. I consider him a friend. He's here today with his wife, Kay, which we welcome you, Kay. I present to you Billy Lovett, the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you all. Tom, congratulations on the great success of this organization. Hank, to you, Kelly, all of the people that have done so much work. I want to also tell you that the Georgia Republican Party has a Christmas special. If you join now, I will deliver personally a turkey to your house, cook it for you, dressing, the whole meal. It's a special, only $1,000 if you pay today. We'll be happy to take care of it for you. I want to thank my wife for coming out this morning. She does a regular television program on Channel 5, Good Day Atlanta show. And so she taped her program earlier in the week to come out and be with us. And thank you for being here and allowing me to take the time in the chairmanship of the Georgia Republican Party. And I know that Ed Sims is a very fine and honorable man, and we have something in common, probably with Tom Perdue as well. There's none of us that are going to run for office. So Tom has allowed me the freedom, since I'm not running for anything and have no plans on running for anything. Tom said I could talk about anything in the party that I wanted to talk about. Now, what I like to do, and I look at my job and define my job as chairman of the party, as recruiting, training, and electing the finest people possible to office. And what I do constantly is try to promote our elected officials. And I would suggest to you that you do invite our minority leader in the House and the Senate. Steve Stansel and Skin Edge are great public servants. They're doing an outstanding job for us, and let them give you a review of the legislative agenda for '94. I have prepared for you that agenda, though, and you can pick it up on the way out, because It gives it to you in a format that I think you'll like, and it hits on all of our major points for the 94th session. But what I'd like to talk about, politics is people, it's ideas, but you've got to have the kind of candidates there, and you've got to have the office holders to be able to carry it out. So our job in building this party has really been to develop our candidates, develop our office holders, and this organization has been instrumental in furnishing ideas. But let me tell you, we're setting all-time records. The reason our party is growing because we are a party of principles, we're a party of ideas, we're a party that believes in cutting spending and cutting taxes and small government and providing people with opportunity to succeed, the grand opportunity party. And we're having major successes in Fulton County, Georgia, when we elected Mitch Scandalakis. Mitch is going to be an outstanding county commission chairman. And Jim, you know, he's working on, went down his first day and found that Fulton County Leasing Corporation. All these ways to get out from under the debt ceilings. You're going to see major accomplishments with Mitch. One of the outstanding leaders in the party now at the local level is Cobb County Commission Chairman Bill Byrne. Bill is a serious, dedicated public servant that understands what local government is supposed to do and what it's not supposed to do. And Bill Byrne is going to be one of the outstanding leaders in this party. He has a great opportunity to go as far as he wants to go. But he's building a base, he's building a record right here in Cobb County, and he's cutting spending, he's cutting waste, he's cutting inefficiency, he's being innovative, and this is what we encourage all of our people to do. If you want to be part of the Republican Party and you want to run, we don't want the same old that we've had in the past. We want you to make proactive change, and not change for change's sake, but real, true, conservative ideas that are going to touch people's lives, that are going to free them up, not bond them in some outmoded, outdated welfare system that has destroyed a generation of people, but free people up to be as good as they can be, not keep them in bondage. To give people their money back, not put a pistol to their head. You know, when Americans give tens of billions of dollars a year to charity, to their churches, to help other people, and then we have some people in our society talk about greedy corporations and greedy people. Where does all this money come from? It comes from the depths of the human heart and compassion in people to want to help other people. But people don't want guns held to their head when they're giving freely to help others and say, we want more, extract more money, extort more money out of you for taxes to give to people so that we can maintain a political base. That's why we're electing governors in Virginia, in New Jersey. I mean, honestly and sincerely, Bill Clinton has done more to remind people why they like Republicans than anything else we could have done. So I was hoping I'd get an amen. And honestly and sincerely, as a former Democrat, I wish the Democrat Party well. It's formally, I think, a great party. I hope it is strong. We need competition in this country. We need good competition. We need competition in this state between our people, between ideas, and I want that party to realize some of its past mistakes. I want it to be competitive in the marketplace of ideas and really address what people's concerns are. We have been a miserable failure in education, and we ought to solidly be for choice and for vouchers and let the marketplace compete. We need competition in the education system to reform the system. No tinkering at the margins. We can't afford this. We're impacting the lives of individuals through criminal activity. We aren't being tough on criminals. We aren't being tough on crimes. We're tinkering at the edges. We have prisons that have been built that aren't staffed. We're making major blunders, and it's costing us in lives and human tragedy and billions of dollars. So we're failing there. We are too bloated in our state government. We are too inefficient in our county government. We have all of these major problems and opportunities that aren't really being addressed with people that can stand up and have ideas and have courage, that'll stand behind it and say, yes, it's time to do something different. That's why we elected a mayor of Jersey City, New Jersey, of Los Angeles, California, of New York City. It's time. People are saying we've had enough, we're frustrated. We really want to go back to the basics. And taking off where Newt Gingrich talked with you last time, people really do want and sense that they need to get back to a values-based system. I mean, we in this country cannot turn away from God no matter what religion you are. We cannot turn our back on values. And when we adopted during the 60s and 70s, through the Lyndon Johnson era, this attitude of anything goes in this country, that anybody is free to do anything and you're not held to personal accountability and responsibility. And we've seen our society be denigrated and disintegrate through that period of time. People today are saying we've had enough. And honestly and truly, they're looking to the Republican Party for those ideas, for the leadership and the change. And I've committed myself with all of the time and energy that I can in finding those candidates that will stand up and be different and will articulate those issues. And I hope the Democrat Party will do the same as well. And I really do wish them the very best. But I would say, and I know a lot of you here are Republicans, but in doing my job, let me put in one other plug. If you see, I've put some cards on your table, if you see that the Republican Party stands for what you believe in, I want you to join us. I want you to let me know, and I'll be happy to spend some time with you. We've just had some major individuals that have come over and joined our party. John Oxendine, the chairman of the State Personnel Board, is resigned from the Democrat Party, is now a Republican, and will be our candidate for Insurance Commission. The chairman of the State Board of Education, Hollis Latham, has resigned from the Democrat Party, is now a Republican, and will be a candidate for the Cherokee County Commission chairman. The counsel to the Democrat Party, Lee Oxendine, has resigned and is now a Republican, and is going to be a great asset to our party. We've had tremendous success in getting our message across. Freedom, low taxes, opportunity, cut spending, cut waste, educate our children, tough on crime. We're winning. We will continue to win in '94. We appreciate your advice and support and efforts to help us continue to field the kind of candidates that represent you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Billy. Have a cup of coffee, but don't get too relaxed. You'll be back up here in a minute. But Edgar Sims and I have supported the same candidate, and we have opposed each other in politics. He's a worthy opponent. He is a principled man, and he is dedicated to his legal profession. He's a senior partner in the Atlanta-based firm of Long, Aldridge, and Norman, and he specializes in the areas of banking and finance, and he also heads the firm's public finance section. That group of Long, Aldridge, and Norman has a national practice, and it has served as bond counsel to state and local governments in 45 of the 50 states. His group has also represented every national investment banking firm in the United States as underwriters counsel. Ed Sims is chairman of the Democratic Party of Georgia. He has served as chairman since September of 1990. He was nominated to that position by then Governor-elect Zell Miller. As chairman of the party, he also headed the Georgia delegation to the 1992 Democratic Convention, and he also serves on the Democratic National Committee as a member and as a trustee. He's active in the Episcopal Church, in the Metropolitan Atlanta United Way, in the American Cancer Society, and he's also chairman of First Capital Bank in Atlanta. He and his wife, Nori, have 3 daughters and 2 sons, so join me in welcoming Edgar Sims, chairman of the Georgia Democratic Party.
Thank you. And before I make my comments, I want to say a particular thanks to Tom Perdue, not only for that nice introduction, but for the contribution he has made to this state under 2 governors, as well as in the private sector and in his part, Hank, in putting together this remarkable group. And I would like to ask him to stand up and let us give him a hand for all he's done for our state. As anyone would be, I am impressed by the Georgia Public Policy Foundation. I am even more impressed by the principles that you seek to apply to our government. When I meet someone, the first thing I want to know is something about them. Sure, I know they work somewhere and they've done this and that, but I really want to know what I can about what makes them tick so I can get some sense of how I'm going to value or not value what they say. So I'm going to digress for a minute and tell you a little bit about Ed Sims. What's not on your resume is that when I was 11 years old growing up in Toccoa, Georgia, where my mother taught school, at my father having died early in my life, a friend and I set up a stand by the side of the road that led to the school where you had 1st grade through 12th grade in Toccoa. And we sold candy and snacks and soft drinks to the kids going to and from school. We got up early, we were there selling to them on the way, and then we raced out afterwards. We didn't hang around and sold to them going out, because at that time you didn't have that kind of junk food in a school. I learned early in my life how to buy it wholesale and where the local wholesale place was and how to sell it retail. And that if I didn't do that, I didn't go to the show on Saturday. And if I had too much inventory, that was as bad as not having sold it and I didn't go to the show on Saturday, or if I did, I couldn't buy popcorn. At 15, I started to work in the Chrysler Plymouth dealership in Toccoa, in the shop there. And my first car was a car I bought as a wreck, and I got junk parts, and I knew every junk dealer, every one in Stevens County, and rebuilt over a 2-year period. And let me tell you, I've never valued a car more. Since I can first remember, thinking about earning a living, I've respected and I have fully embraced what is loosely called the free enterprise system. The fact that I can do what I do today, the fact that I can give time to whatever causes I believe in, are due solely to the fact that in my life I've been able to live in an economy and live in a society where I could become a part, as I did, of buying a bedding manufacturing company with a partner and luckily be able to operate it very profitably and then sell it. That I had been free to form a bank with a number of other individuals in Banks County, Georgia, called the Bank of Banks. And as Bucky Kimsey knows, operate that very profitably until we sold to a holding company a couple of years ago, at which time I resigned from the board. And the freedom here in Atlanta to form a bank in 1987 in Gwinnett County, then Central Gwinnett Bank, and after some tough startup years, after a lot of hard work, make that a success. Recently acquired the Paces Bank and recently acquired portions of two other banks, two other S&Ls here in Atlanta. The private enterprise system, I believe, Hank, is what's given us the ability to create what we have as individuals, as a state, and as a nation. And I share with Zell Miller and Pierre Howard and other Democratic leaders a belief that too much government or too much or unnecessary restrictions on private enterprise by government will make it impossible for us to achieve what we want to achieve, both as individuals and as a state and a nation. There are some things that only government can do. And when I sit down with my Republican friends, what I find is that I don't disagree on the value of the free enterprise system. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for it. My difference is many times simply what are those functions that government should do and what should it not do. So there is no difference between me, the chairman of the Democratic Party, and the principles that we believe in, and the Georgia Public Policy Foundation and the principles that each of you believe. And I hope that my being here and your knowing of who I am and where I'm coming from is the ultimate proof of that. What should we do with state government? What we should do with state government is apply common sense and sound business principles to ensure that tax money is properly spent and not wasted. It is a constant battle, as Tom Perdue knows probably better than anyone else in this room. But talk is easy. Talk is real easy. Let's look at what some Democrats do and have done. I submit to you that Georgia's Democratic governors, George Busbee, Joe Frank Harris, and Zell Miller, have applied business principles to state government. Like Zell Miller, who knows what it's like to meet a payroll after 10 years of owning and running a bank before he became governor, Democratic governors have called upon business leaders for advice and assistance in running state government throughout the history of the Democratic Party in Georgia. I will mention only one area of current state government. In 1990, 50 states were faced with an economic crisis, with a downturn in the economy and shrinking state revenues. In 48 of those states, the governor either introduced or signed a tax increase. In Georgia, the governor and the legislature working together reduced in a special session our state budget $800 million. Our governor and legislators, both Democratic and Republican, had the courage to reduce the state and its government to the budget it had rather than trying to increase its taxes. They laid off 600 employees, and that's tough, and nobody ever takes pleasure in that, but just like in private business, you've got to do it sometime, and eliminated 5,000 positions in a bloated state bureaucracy. Over the last 20 years, the number of employees in state government has grown an average of 10% every 2 years. Think about that. Now that's growth. In the last 3 years, the number of employees in state government has increased a total over 3 years of 1.8%. The number of state employees in state government would actually have decreased in the last 3 years, but for the fact that Zell Miller has opened up more prison beds than any other governor in the state of Georgia, in the history of the state. And in addition to that, has opened up more boot camps than any other state in the nation. In 1990, Georgia's reserve fund, its rainy day fund for fiscal crisis, was at zero. It had been drawn down in order to meet the growing fiscal crisis. Today, that reserve fund has $141 million in it and is growing back to the level it should be. And finally, Zell Miller and the legislature had the courage to take the recommendations of a commission made up of the business leaders of this state and take some actions that were very unpopular but very needed. They, for example, put driver's license and other fees like that on a break-even basis because, ladies and gentlemen, our tax dollars ought not to be spent subsidizing driver's license around this state. That is an activity that the state ought to operate on a break-even basis. It ought not to profit from it, but nor should our tax dollars subsidize it, because our tax dollars, those tough dollars that we earn, that we have to pay to government, ought to go to only those things that the state really ought to be doing, like education or prisons, or the things that only government should do. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I embrace your principles, and I look forward to the impact that this group can have on government at all levels. Thank you.
Okay, ask questions of Ed and Billy, and I'm just going to put a watch here so they can both keep track of the time because Ed does have to leave at 8:30.
First question is to Ed. Ed, what will the budget, the state budget be in 94, 95? What do you have to do?
Probably the legislators would have a better idea of that. I simply don't know.
I am informed by the chairman, one of the chairmen, the chairman of the Senate is to be around $9 billion. What was it when Mr. Miller took over?
8.
So it's going up $1 billion. Roughly.
Assuming that it was that this year is 9, yes, that would be a 8% increase, I guess.
Where do you
over.
estimate that additional revenue comes from?
I assume the growth in revenues resulting from a turnaround of the economy. Again, there are probably legislators who are more familiar with that than I.
You say it comes from taxes?
Yes. I think that since 1990, and again, I'm not at all positive about this, but I think there's been a substantial increase in the economy, and therefore the same amount of taxes produce a substantially larger amount of tax revenues.
Y'all can't be bashful. Bob?
Tom, I haven't read it in the paper yet, but I saw the headline in this morning's Journal-Constitution about some fairly significant bonuses being paid to the heads of the Georgia Lottery. I'd like to have comments from both chairmen of the parties as to whether or not that sends a good or a bad or a neutral signal to the people of this state who have been promised that as much money possible from the lottery will be used for educational purposes.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Bob. I read that this morning, and quite truthfully, I was shocked. And first, I've got to be fair. I'm opposed to the lottery. I think it's a terrible idea. It's part of this whole disintegration of society we've had in the 60s, the liberalism of saying that we don't have enough motivation, we don't have enough innovation to get private companies involved in education. We have to go out and teach people how to gamble and promote promote a form of illegal activity, appeal to people's worst natures, and saying that, justifying it, that it's something that they're going to do anyway. You could say that about drugs, as Jocelyn Elders did. You can say that about prostitution. You can say that about anything. But it's just an awful, awful idea, one that I think we'll pay for generations to come. Now, beyond that, we have a day and a time where people want their tax dollars, their very precious dollars. They want the ability, they want the freedom to hold those dollars and spend them, and they want government looking at tax cuts, they want it looking at cutting spending. They have real questions about the political side of that lottery operation. And I think Matt Towery is exactly on target. Now, I'd like to hear some other Democrats, and I know there's some other Democrats other than the apron guy, talking about what's wrong with this lottery operation. I know there's some Democrats that have real concerns. So this is a time that we're talking about problems in education, problems in crime. We don't need to be building country club resorts with taxpayer money. We need to be investing in education with other means. We need to be investing in our prison system, and we need to, more than just building prisons, a very aggressive, one like you have stood for through the years, message in our talking about our judicial reform and our aggressive nature, that we need to send a message to criminals. We're going to catch you, we're going to prosecute you. 3 strikes and you're out. We're throwing away the key. You commit a crime in this state and you're going to do the time. And we mean it. And any other messages that we have out there, like lottery, I think goes entirely against it.
I don't know with regard to, I believe the question was about the lottery bonuses. I assume, but I have no way of knowing that was probably a part of whatever contract people signed when they came on board. But again, it's just not something I know the answer to. Speaking of crime, I fully agree. I find myself agreeing with absolutely everything Billy Lovett says, which quite frankly, from 1 or 2 conversations privately, we found as well. I agree. We want to send a signal in Georgia to criminals that if you come to Georgia, brother, you're going to pay if you commit crimes. And, over the past couple of years, we've had a tremendous problem with early release in Georgia. And that is that when you're sentenced to a crime, even before you could be paroled, you got free because there weren't enough prison beds out there. So just people pushed out one end as they pushed in the other. Today, no prisoners are released early from Georgia prisons because of early release. We now have enough prison beds to keep prisoners in jail. As a matter of fact, in Georgia today, murderers serve twice as much time as the national average. Violent criminals, and I can provide anyone the information they want on that, people who commit violent crimes, such as armed robbery and rape, serve in Georgia today 3 times as much time as the national average. There are a number of signals that we need to send in Georgia to anybody who's thinking about committing a crime. And I fully agree with Mr. Lovett and Mr. Barr that that is something that's important for us to do in Georgia.
I have a question for you, Mr. Sims. In regards to the prison system, I realize that watching Georgia, that they continue to build more prison systems, and the prisoners go in these prison systems, and they come out with the same mentality that they went in. I think it might be our responsibility as a state to try to educate these prisoners, or something like the foreign countries do, have some obligation to give these prisoners a skill. Because you put a person in prison 2 years, 5 years, don't give them a skill, they're going to go back to do what they did prior to in prison. We cannot afford, as a state, to continue to increase prison size. And the prisoners go in, come out. They go in and watch TV, play cards. Our obligation should be to the prisoners to teach them a skill, teach them how to be a mechanic, teach them how to be a carpenter, teach them how to be a plumber. Why don't we spend money on that?
I fully agree. I do agree we've got to have enough prison beds so that when someone is sentenced to a crime, when a judge who's heard the facts and a jury who's heard the facts makes a decision, that it's carried out. So I must say we've got to spend money to make sure we've got enough beds and enough cells to house the prisoners. Second, one of the things that Zell Miller has done is build more boot camps than any other state in the nation. And in these boot camps, that gives people an opportunity to learn self-discipline, to learn the kinds of values, the values that come from getting up early and working hard and carrying out a job, doing something that perhaps they never got at home. And if, by taking nonviolent first-time offenders and having them go through this intensive boot camp experience, somewhat like the Marine boot camp that Zell Miller went through, if we can rehabilitate those kinds of people and not put them in with the general prison population, that's exactly the kind of first step we need to take in accomplishing the goals that you speak of. No prisoners in Georgia today sit around and watch television. Every prisoner who is not the subject of a health problem does something, performs some function, and no one sits around watching TV in Georgia prisons today.
Thank you. Emory?
Just two quick questions for both gentlemen. Who was running the state when it became so bloated and inefficient? What party was it that did that? And what are both parties doing to try to stop the state from being so bloated with 159 different county administrations and so much, I think, more state when local bureaucrats per capita than nearly any other state in the country? Do we have a plan to try to reduce that?
I believe that Billy Lovett was in charge when all that happened.
Tom Perdue was in charge. I was just a small fish. This is the big guy. Well, Emory, I appreciate that question. I did have a very, very, very small role to play, and I realized the error of my ways, and I changed parties and became more conservative throughout the years. This state has clearly been headed in the wrong direction in so many areas for a long, long time. Getting back to what I said earlier, it is my job to promote candidates that truly believe that there's a better way of doing things. The problem with what we've had in the past is the Democrats simply not because they're bad people. I mean, there's a lot of people down there I like personally, and I think genuinely are good people and trying to do the right thing, and you served with them, you know that as well. So it's not a question of their integrity or whether they mean to do well, but as we have heard through the years, and particularly I think from one of our leaders, Newt Gingrich, and by the way, that's one of the things I really do think that y'all made a big mistake on. I mean, the idea in America of not allowing a person to teach at a public university to express ideas is just so foreign and incredible to me. I think that's a major mistake that the Democrats have made. But the fact of the matter is, the Republicans, if they are to succeed, are going to have to be clearly different. They're going to have to be serious. They're going to have to be point in fact. They're going to have to offer innovation, and not only talk the talk, but walk the walk. I mean, it's going to have to be real. This is a better way of doing it. This is what government doesn't need to do. And I think we're clearly seeing that in this legislative session. And again, Skin Edge, Steve Stansel, and other members of the House and Senate, and the gubernatorial candidates are clearly going to be able to fund that. We've got the finest group of candidates that we've ever offered, and they're going to be articulating all of those from a leadership position in that primary that I think we've ever had. And on the local level, we're seeing that in Randy Pointer, the chairman of the Atlanta Regional Commission in Rockdale, and Bill Byrne and Mitch Scandalakis. So we're seeing that. I mean, our people are out doing it now. We're not just talking about it, but we're out doing it.
I think that, in answer to your question, who did all this? I can't really answer what happened 10 years ago. What I can tell you is what Democrats today are doing, just as I have, to solve the problems of bloated government without eliminating the essential functions that government and only government can perform, of cutting back when hard times come rather than increasing taxes, and of dealing with problems like crime, and it's just one, that have to be dealt with if we're going to have a safe place within which to live and work. And I believe that the candidates running today, the candidates who have, like Zell Miller, who have had 3 years to speak with what they've done rather than just empty rhetoric, have proved that they are dealing in a way that I want, and I believe many people in this room want, those problems dealt with.
Thank you. Ed is going to have to leave. We've got one picture that needs to be made with both Billy and Ed, if y'all mind posing in one picture together right there, and then I'll make a couple of announcements. Then Billy's going to come right back. Ed, thank you. Let's thank our speakers right now. Anyway. Yes, ma'am. Lady in the red coat.
What we can take a look
that's good. Well, first of all, I agree with everything you said. And and maybe I didn't articulate this well earlier, but I really do think that the Republican initiative, the private enterprise, the competitive initiative, and that's our principle, that's what we stand on, where we want to rethink and recreate government in doing a job more efficiently. So it's not a matter of pouring money into the same old system that we've had in tinkering at the margins, fine-tuning at the edges. I don't want to use the word reinvent government. I think that's been distorted. But I really want to say that with plans like yours, with individuals, with companies coming to government and saying, you don't need all these people. What you've done in the past hasn't worked. Try our idea. It will save you money. It will accomplish some real objectives. Give us a try. So this is in the best spirit of the business community, small business, large business. Let's do test cases, and let's see. So, I really don't understand why it hasn't been done. But again, I don't run the state government, so you'll need to ask the people that do.
I understand what you're saying, and this may be out of the general format. That has been done. Those programs have been tested. They do work.
Good.
And no one is doing anything about them. The bureaucracy ties it up to where it takes 2 years for someone to come back and say, well, we'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
in fact, in 2 years, you've had to build more prisons, add more beds, lock up more people,
Yeah.
and put more people on the street.
Well,
Rather than turn those same working programs into programs where people can make a difference.
I'm agreeing with you. There's a lot of mysteries to government that I don't understand either. So we need to make change.
Pardon, let me ask you to do one thing. Speak some way that helps people your choice. You're willing to do that. You and 49,999 others will have a different voice in this state than you as one sole person. Because I agree with you. I've been there. I'm there today. And if everybody in this room will do one thing, and I ask you to make one commitment to yourself, not to me, I'm on the other side of it. The thing to me is if we all commit, and you can help us put 50,000 Georgians into the Georgia Public Policy Foundation, I can promise you, we will be heard. You will be heard. There is no way with that kind of power and that kind of strength that we can't change this state. But decency, fair play, the individual rights, everything that you speak about can be done. It cannot be done by the Republican Party. It cannot be done by the Democratic Party. It cannot be done by the independents. It can be done by you and me and the rest of us who believe it in the gut and will do something about it and unite and say to this state, we need and demand and we will change, period. And I ask you and everybody here to help us to get to the 50,000 when we do. I know that's a crazy off-the-wall dream. We've got, 1,400? But we can do it if we all pull together and all know that we're not Democratic, we're not Republican, well, whatever we are, we're for the individual Georgian who believes and needs the help and the chance to do what he or she wants to do. And I'm for you. And all I ask you to do is just join us and let us put this group together. When we do, we'll find the answers. Thank you.
Really, we heard today from Ed Sims that we heard last time from Charles Starr about the reductions in government. How significant is 600 people reduced in the state payroll? What is the state payroll? How significant is 600 or 3,000 people?
Well, people pose questions about budgets all the time and I hear this. Somebody wants to, Mitch Gandalakis, I think the former chairman had 9 personal aides. He reduced 6. Does that make a big impact? Is that important in the whole Fulton County budget? No, it's not. But that's not the question. Is it the right thing to do? If it was $1, if it was $1, those are tax dollars. That's your money, that's my money, that's the public's money, and the public deserves to keep their own dollars and have the freedom to spend them on things that they want to spend them on. Not have someone in government spending those dollars for them. Now, clearly, there's abuses in government, there's abuses in Fulton County government. You're going to see, Mitch, whether it's $125,000 or $5 million, you're going to see major reductions. So the message that we want to send to the taxpayers, if it's 600 people, or if it's 100 people, or if it's 1,000 people, these are your dollars, they're precious dollars. We want you to keep them. We want you to spend them in the economy. We want you to spend them on education. We want you to do things with those dollars that you earned them. You worked hard for them. If you want to give them to charity, give them to charity. But it's not, government doesn't have the right to take those dollars from you and spend it on anything. That's the question. Yes, sir. Doug.
Chairman Lovett, I serve in the Georgia House of Representatives. I'm really interested in reforming the legislative process. I don't think any of these ideas are going to be implemented with the current process. I'm not talking about just about individuals. I'm talking about the process where certain individuals have great access to the decision makers. Does the Republican Party have any ideas about reforming the process, the way that legislation actually is made, so that we can reform the way public policy is made?
Doug, I do appreciate we work together on various projects, and you and I are together on wanting to see the system improve. And to my knowledge, our folks in the House and the Senate, and I hope you all can form working coalitions to seek those improvements. And I couldn't tell you specifically, I have proposals on our legislative agenda, but as far as specifically what you're talking about, I don't know what proposals that they have on the table. But I would encourage our folks to work with you in your proposals, and any way I can expedite that, I'll be happy to do it.
One last question.
Yes. This is the last question, Tom.
Let's let this be the last question. Some of you've got to leave, but Billy has said that he will stay here after this is over and take other questions.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lovett, as an educator, and I wish you were tied to the park system, you mentioned vouchers. And historically, we knew what kind of system we had in Georgia. Go back into history where the people who could afford it, students went to school. Then the legislature saw in its wisdom that poor whites, not blacks, would go to the poor common schools. And many of you here are from Cobb County. Now I want you to give me the rationale for vouchers when our legislature last year, in its wisdom, passed charter schools, which means if you have something that you don't particularly like and a percentage of those people get together and they can be released from certain things from the State Board of Education and do that. You're talking about chaos. We all know that these private schools could not take our students. You couldn't even make up a school budget in Park County if they had vouchers. Would you please kind of elaborate on that?
I sure will. And believe me, we may have a difference of opinion on this, but I respect your opinion. The years that you spent in education, and I'm not standing here, please believe me, criticizing any work that you have done. In the broad context, our education system in this state is a failure. And you can explain it away any way you can explain it away. The SAT scores or this or that, and I've heard all these explanations and rationales. What I would say is that we can do it better. I believe in the free enterprise competitive system. It makes things better. If you've got two political parties competing for ideas with candidates, it makes it better. It makes the system work better. You can't just put in a voucher system one day and that's the way it is. It will have to be well thought out. It will have to be done, phased in over a period of time. But the way it should work is that you don't have the private schools today that can accommodate a complete freedom of choice system. But what you do is when you start to say that we are going to remake our education system, we're going to do it better. And we're going to encourage the private enterprise system, people that the same way that people own and develop and run, just like the people that sponsor this function, Tom. Private colleges do the same thing. Technical schools, trade schools, specialists, Whittle Communications. They come in and say, we'll get the best and the brightest people to come in and help us develop these private institutions. And I could see hundreds and hundreds of these private institutions developed, available to anybody that wants to go and get a good education. They're all over the state, they're available, they're accessible, and where we have a whole system of competing institutions the same way the college and university system works. I don't see where that's a terrible idea. It'll take a little while to get it worked out, it'll take a phase-in period, but over time, it's got to produce better results than the system that we've produced now. And I agree with the Reverend. It's not dealing with these problems at the end. The education system, the failures there are tied to the prison system, but they're all tied back to the value system. That's where they come from. And when we've taken values out of the school system, we've taken it out of the family, we've taken it out of politics, people wonder why we've got the problems we have. It's pretty simple for me to see, and unfortunately, not enough people see it that way, but that's what we're here to talk about. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.